Tonight, you're going to sit down for dinner. Maybe it's chicken, maybe beef, maybe fish. But there's one thing almost guaranteed not to be on your plate. And it's not because it's too expensive or too exotic. It's because something deep inside you refuses. Something ancient. Something written into your biology long before you were born. And the real reason why you can't eat predator meat is far stranger than you think. Picture a lion. Massive. 400 pounds of pure muscle. Now imagine cutting off a piece and throwing it on a grill. Your stomach just did something, didn't it? A small lurch. A quiet refusal. You didn't choose that reaction. It just happened. And that reaction has been happening in human bodies for hundreds of thousands of years, for reasons that have nothing to do with taste. Most people assume it's a cultural rule, a tradition, something someone decided once and the rest of humanity followed. But it runs much deeper than that. The aversion to predator meat is not a choice. It is a survival mechanism. And once you understand what's actually inside that meat, you'll understand why your body figured this out long before science did. Start with the most basic question. What makes predator meat different? At first glance, meat is meat. Protein, fat, calories. But predators eat other animals, and when they do, they absorb not just the nutrients, but the biological load that comes with them. Parasites, pathogens, toxins that accumulate as they move up the food chain. This process has a name, bioaccumulation, and in predators, it is extreme. Dr. Valerie Curtis, an evolutionary biologist at the London School of Hygiene and Tropical Medicine, spent years studying human disgust responses. Her research found that disgust evolved specifically as a disease avoidance system. It is not random. It is not irrational. Every time your gut clenches at the idea of eating something wrong, your brain is running a threat detection program that is millions of years old. And predator meat triggers that program hard. Think about what a lion eats. Zebra, wildebeest, antelope, animals that might carry their own parasites and bacteria. When the lion eats them, it doesn't just eat their muscle, it eats everything living inside them. And then those parasites, the ones that survived, set up residence inside the predator. By the time you eat the predator, you're not eating one animal, you're eating every animal it ever consumed, and every biological threat those animals carried. Researchers at the University of Georgia published findings showing that toxin concentration in apex predator tissue can be 10 to 100 times higher than in herbivore tissue from the same ecosystem. 10 to 100 times. And your ancestors didn't need a lab to figure that out. Their bodies told them. But the story doesn't stop with toxins. There's something else happening. Something that operated at the level of ecological logic that early humans understood intuitively, even if they couldn't explain why. Predators are rare. Herbivores are abundant. A single savanna can support thousands of wildebeest and a handful of lions. If your survival depends on finding food, which one makes more sense to hunt? The prey that is everywhere and doesn't fight back with claws? Or the apex predator that is scarce, dangerous to kill, and, as your body somehow already knows, wrong to eat once you have it? Dr. Leslie Aiello, an evolutionary anthropologist at the Wenner-Gren Foundation, has written extensively on the dietary patterns of early Homo sapiens. Her work points to a consistent pattern across dozens of archaeological sites. Humans hunted herbivores overwhelmingly. The remains of carnivores appear at ancient campsites occasionally, but almost always without butchering marks. They were scavenged for their pelts and bones, almost never eaten. This wasn't coincidence. This was a pattern repeated across cultures, across continents, across hundreds of thousands of years. And where the pattern breaks, where humans actually did eat predator meat, the consequences were waiting. Polar bear liver. Arctic explorers in the 19th century, starving and desperate, killed polar bears and ate every part they could. The ones who ate the liver experienced something terrifying. Vitamin A toxicity, violent headaches, skin peeling off in sheets, vision disturbances. In severe cases, death. Polar bear livers contain vitamin A concentrations so massive, up to 9 million international units per 100 grams, that a single meal is enough to kill a human being. Your ancestors didn't know about vitamin A, but somehow they learned. The pattern was recognized. The aversion spread. Paul Rozin, a psychologist at the University of Pennsylvania who has spent decades studying food psychology, describes something he calls the law of contagion. His research shows that humans consistently behave as though properties of a thing are transferred through consumption. You are what you eat, not just metaphorically, but psychologically. And what you eat when you eat a predator is something that spent its entire life at the violent apex of its world. Something your brain, without knowing the biochemistry, has always flagged as dangerous. There's one more dimension most people never consider: muscle structure. A lion's muscles are optimized for explosive sprinting and killing force, dense, tight, heavily fibrous, poorly marbled. Any chef who has ever encountered predator meat describes it as almost universally unpleasant, tough, gamey to a degree that overwhelms the palate. Not because the animal was sick, but because the diet and lifestyle of a predator produce a fundamentally different type of tissue. Compare this to a cow. It walks slowly, grazes, rests. Its muscles are loose, marbled with fat, mild in flavor. Every farm animal humans have ever domesticated shares this profile. Low-stress movement, herbivore diet, mild tissue, easy to digest. No human civilization has ever domesticated an obligate carnivore for food, not once. In the entire history of agriculture on every continent, no culture looked at a predator and said, "This is what we should farm." That omission is not a coincidence. It is a verdict. Think about what your body has been telling you, quietly, every time you've looked at something and felt that wordless refusal. That feeling has a history. It is not superstition. It is the accumulated wisdom of every human who ever got it wrong, passed forward through the only channel available before language, before writing, before science: the channel of survival. The ones who ignored the signal didn't pass it on. The ones who listened did. And somewhere in you, right now, their lesson is still running. Tonight, when you sit down at your dinner table, you'll probably eat something that came from an animal that ate plants. Something mild, something familiar, something your body accepts without question. And you won't think twice about why. But now you know. That meal is not random. The predator not on your plate is just as deliberate, just as old, and just as deeply human as anything else about you.